What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from, well, the Jeremy Hambly channel. I hope you're doing well. I have some great news for you. The trans madness is over. And if you're done with it too, make sure you click that thumbs up button on the video. Look, I always knew this was a social contagion. The percentages, the math just wasn't mathin', so to speak, when you kept seeing these ridiculous reports about, say, oh, 10, 12, 13, 14% of America's youth all identify as LGBTQ or some other, alphabet letter. When I was in high school, we just called those kids goth or metro or whatever. And eventually, literally all of them grew out of it. Yes, there were a couple of gay kids in college. I went to our high school. I went to the largest high school in the state, and I think we had three in my graduating class, maybe two. Certainly there was definitely only one or two that were out. Let's say double it for people that weren't out. Okay. I had like 1,000 people in my graduating class or 2,000 people. That's about right. Less than 1%. That's the normal rate. When you had people coming out, well, normal. That was the rate up until recently. Then after it became a form of social currency or a replacement for a personality, suddenly everybody was non-binary or pan or this or that. And then you had some people who had other legitimate mental disorders, and they got talked into having double mastectomies, and they got talked into taking hormones, and many of which are now trying to sue the companies that gave them these medicines. And now we have this. Trans Americans threaten to leave the country. Trump voters say, I voted for this. Look, I don't want you to leave the country. I want you to get help. I want you to, I want you to deal with your gender dysphoria. I want you to get off your puberty blockers. I want you to get off your hormones. I want you to find a different therapist that isn't, forcing these drugs on you, all this kind of stuff. That's what I want. I want all of these high school guidance counselors that were grooming their students into this nonsense. I wanted them out. I want them fired from their job. I want them, gone. These are the changes that I want to see. I want to see people get help. I don't want to see them flee the country, but I'm not going to stop you. Certainly, if a bunch of people who identify as trans flee the country, we will definitely see, school incidents and mass incidents go down. This is just true. We will see violent attacks on conservatives go down. So I think that's probably a good thing. On Tuesday's Alex Marlow show, host on Breitbart chief editor Alex Marlow discussed this. Look, I don't care, if they want to leave the country. I prefer you just get help. I prefer you get off these
stepping on stuff. Vox had an article, Vox, a left-wing outlet, why many transgendered Americans are preparing to flee the country. And this is put out there as if it's some sort of a warning. Oh no, things are so horrible for the transgendered. But I got to tell you, how many of you in the audience are thinking if transgendered Americans are going to leave the country? How many of you are thinking, I voted for this. Right. That's exactly what I voted for. I don't want any more transgender Americans. And it is, look, we disavow all violence. Media matters. Don't take me out of context. No harm should be done to any of the trannies. We should let them live in peace so long as they don't groom us.
Look, again, I think most people who suffer from gender dysphoria are not the people that we see online. They're not the people that we see, in these viral videos, but certainly a significant or a not insignificant percentage of them are committing these acts. We saw this in Minneapolis. We saw this with Charlie Kirk. We saw this with, just about every major school incident in the past couple of years. We saw that obviously with Nashville and Aubrey Hale. We saw that in Minneapolis with that guy who is tired of the trans shtick, according to his own words. We saw this with I believe the Colorado theater shooter. It goes on and on and on and on. The Pulse nightclub, I think, was one. I can't remember exactly. Or was that an Arab? I can't remember. Either way, not a straight American. But anyway, go ahead and leave if you want. I'd prefer you get help. because I do believe that there is, these people could find God and be saved and, leave these kind of degenerate lifestyle choices behind. But here's the science to back it up. Young Americans identifying as trans or non-binary in free fall as experts pinpoint what's behind the shift. Again, I don't need to be an expert. I guess I am somewhat of an expert because I've been covering this stuff for years. Being trans or any one of these LGBTQ offshoots, this was a form of social currency. And that's why you saw the spike. It wasn't because suddenly people felt better coming out. It wasn't because suddenly people, felt safe. No, it was a social currency for people with no personality. Ugly people who couldn't get laid saying, oh, well, I'm asexual. This kind of stuff. This is, anybody could see this. Is very, very obvious. And once that went away, once TikTok, stopped kind of promoting that, once the Dylan Mulvaney's the world. By the way, Dylan Mulvaney will go back to just being a gay man. Mark my words. Like, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that he'll go back to being a run-of-the-mill gay man now that kind of the trans money grift is running out. But from men contemplating competing in women's sports to rouse over pronouns, America spent the past decade consumed by trans debates. The frenzy is finally fading. A new analysis reveals that the number of young people identifying as trans or non-binary has plunged in recent years. The findings suggest that a rate among 18 to 22-year-olds has halved from 6% at its peak in 2022 to 3% in 2024. And like I said, that number should be at 0.05% or whatever the actual rate of people who have gender dysphoria is. 3%, way too high. 6% was laughably high. Everyone knew that was fake. 3%, again, still just a fake number. It's less than 1%. Even for Professor Jean Twenge or whatever, Twing, San Diego University psychologist who has spent decades researching gender identity trends, the results were jarring. She told the Daily Mail, I was surprised just because of previous trends. Trans identity has steadily been increasing. Again, because it was social currency, not because more people were trans, right? You see this just plummeting, 6% trans, 2%, it was like 5% non-binary in 2023, now down to 2%. These numbers will go tracking back down to less than 1% by the end of Trump's presidency. It's because this kind of stuff is no longer profitable. You're not seeing, all of these brands, willing to tank their entire, brand in order to get a few woke media points. You're seeing Hollywood even get away from it. In his post, Elon Musk and Donald Trump Jr. reshared. It drew flack from critics who noticed that the figures reflected only non-binary respondents. They also called into question how the data was weighted to reflect broader population beyond the sample size. Kaufman used polls from the Foundation of Individual Rights Expression, or FIRE, which polled more than 60,000 American college students from 2016 to 2025 who were not identifying as either male or female. The problem, as I knew looking at the data weights, was that they produced erratic results. He said, reflecting on where the data analysis actually went. Oh, it's the data. Now the trust the science people are saying, guys, well, yeah, the data saying that people are abandoning the trans ideology at an incredible rate, but now the data's wrong. Now you shouldn't trust the science. Now you should just say, well, we need to look at more data. And again, I believe that the data was fudged in the first place to say that there were far more trans people than others. I mean, there were a lot of them using bots and things of that nature. You see trans identification is in free fall among young voters. These are three different charts, Andover, Fire, and Brown. The same results across all three surveys. And the entire grift around this, which is the people that want to pretend that this data isn't real, and the people, and the Venn diagram of those people and the amount of those people whose livelihood or popularity depends on the popularity of transgender and, other stuff like this, there's a big crossover. The professor cautioned, we won't really know for sure if the reduction observed is permanent until 2025 data becomes available. Sure, it will be, though. It absolutely will be. Again, are there people who have gender dysphoria? Yes, of course. I know them in real life, one or two of them. the idea that they represented 1 in 10, which is what the media was trying to say forever, was nonsense. I mean, yeah, there's people who dress like this, but again, do you think? Just let me look. I don't know this for sure, but let me ask you a question. Do you think that this individual man, this man here, do you think that he was having a lot of? Oh, this is a woman? Yikes. Okay, this is a woman. Do you think that this person was, having a lot of luck in the dating pool? Doesn't look like it to me. Do you think this guy was doing well in his dating pool? No. But, he doesn't even bother shaving his legs, but he wears a dress. This is what I don't understand. A lot of this is autogynephilia. A lot of this is a fetish for people. If you really wanted to pass as a woman, you would shave your legs. You don't look like a woman. You look like a man in a dress. If you shave your legs, maybe you could say, well, this is not an attractive woman. But there's a lot of this that, you see a social contagion pushed by truly evil doctors and teachers along with the media. It's not super cool anymore. These are all of the reasons that this has ended. And I hope that history will look back. I don't hope. History will look back at the 2010s as kind of the great gender hysteria. Just like we look at the free love of the 70s. I think that will, that era, the 2010 to 2020s, will be looked at as like the great gender hysteria in America. And future generations will look back and be like, what were they thinking? I, for one, am absolutely glad to see this over with. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like on it. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. It's my personal channel. And we'll talk to you again real soon.